الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. يا رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الغر الميامين ولعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال سيدنا ومولانا أبو عبد الله الصادق عليه الصلاة والسلام: كونوا دعاة لنا صامتين. صدق مولانا الإمام الصادق عليه الصلاة والسلام. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it's an honor for me. It's a point that I would like to prostrate myself in front of Allah Almighty by giving and by having an opportunity that, alhamdulillah, I'm here in midst of you all. I would like to thank Al-Kawthar for giving me another opportunity, and I would like to thank Akbar Uncle and his family for providing us an opportunity that we all can remember the blessed household of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And as we connect ourselves, very important, inshallah, we all have gathered here, we have convened here, and we all have gathered here for one purpose, and that is to commemorate the legacy of Sayyidina wa Mawlana Ja'far bin Muhammad as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. A very important personality, inshallah. So we'll take some of the life lessons that he has taught, inshallah. And we're going to talk about a very specific topic. And the specific topic pertains to preaching and disseminating the message of Prophet Muhammad and his blessed family to different people, whether they are Muslims, whether they are non-Muslims. And within Muslims, different sects within the Islam. How would you be able to communicate the message of the blessed progeny in an effective way that will bring people close towards the message of Al-Muhammad alayhi salam, inshallah. That's going to be our topic, inshallah. The tabligh, as we say in Arabic, and also in Urdu we use this terminology, is a very important thing. And out of the 10 furud that you believe upon, so there are 5 usul. You have tawheed, you have adala, you have nabuwa, you have imama, and you have the ma'ad, the day of judgment. And within the 10 most important things, the most significant things, the most the imperative things that you have to act upon, out of those 10 things, there are 2 that has to pertain with the tabligh that you have to do towards the people. One is called what? Al-amru bil-ma'ruf, preaching whatever is good. And the second is wa-nahi anil munkar, forbidding people and asking people to refrain themselves from doing negative actions. So that is something which is part and parcel within the tashayyu, part and parcel within the Islam. And should I say that it is within the daruriyat of the Islam, that if you are supposed to call yourself a perfect Muslim, you would not be able to complete your faith unless or otherwise you preach whatever is the message of the righteousness, and you ask the people to refrain themselves from the things that would bring the adab of Allah Almighty upon them or upon their family. So with this topic, inshallah, we're going to talk a little bit about in a very effective way. Now this topic is so fundamental, it's so huge that if you're going to talk about the topic in details, we can talk about so many turuq, so many ways that you can disseminate the message of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. But here, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. But here, inshallah, we're going to only use one strategy because there are 3 majalises, and within the 3 majalises, of course, we are very limited with the time. So one strategy that, inshallah, we're going to apply, I'm going to give a basic introduction today. Tomorrow, inshallah, some more examples, and day after tomorrow, a case study that we can, inshallah, use in order to substantiate the way that, inshallah, I'm going to mention in these majalises. So let's come to the importance of the tabligh, the importance of disseminating the message of the truth, importance of communicating the message of the truth, importance of dispatching the message of the truth. Why is it so important that even Prophet Muhammad was being instructed by Allah Almighty? And we use this verse in order to prove the wilayah of Sayyidina wa Mawlana, the commander of the faithful, Ali ibn Abi Talib, right? But very important to use it as a reference for the importance of the tabligh too. Ya ayyuhar rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik, wa illam taf'al fama ballaghta risalata. That, O Prophet, communicate the message, whatever is being disseminated to you. For verily, if you would not communicate this important message, it is as if you have not done anything regarding the prophethood. Wallahu ya'asimuka minan nas. And indeed, Allah is going to preserve you. Allah is going to protect you from the evil of the evildoers. And Allah says at the end, Inna Allaha la yahdi al-qawm al-kafirin. And indeed, Allah does not guide the people that are perpetually disbelieving, or that are the infidels, right? The disbelievers. Allah does not guide them. The people upon whom the hujjah has been completed, and is still after accepting the hujjah, after understanding the hujjah, they don't accept the message of the truth. So tabligh is a very important thing, and very technical point that I would want to mention here. Allah did not say that do it once. For doing it once, Allah could have said that iblagh, they communicate the message once, and that's going to be done. Allah has used a very important terminology, balligh. Now, balligh comes from the bab. If you go into a little bit of tasrif, you go a little bit into the roots of this word. Balligh comes from the root word tabligh, right? Babu taf'il. When we use babu taf'il is generally used if there is any emphasis on a message that has to be done time and again, right? So this is the remembrance that has to be done time and again. The first very important principle of this remembrance, of course, is the wilayah of commander of the faithful. But very important to do, the commander to do the tabligh or whatever is more important. Same way Allah Almighty, whatever He has instructed in the Quran is very important to act upon. But Allah precisely used a very important terminology when He is referring to 3 things that He has asked the believers to concentrate upon, and 3 things that the believer need to refrain themselves from. Now you recite this ayah even on the day of Jum'ah. So something that you come across every time, and I'm going to inshallah reiterate that ayah. Inna Allaha ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'idhukum la'allakum tadhakkurun. That indeed Allah Almighty has commanded you, O believers, what? Allah has commanded you to do equity and justice. Allah has commanded you to do adala. Allah has commanded you to do ihsan. Allah has commanded you to do acts of righteousness with the people. Allah has commanded you that when you're dealing with your loved ones, give money, give belongings, give provision to your loved ones. And indeed Allah forbid you from 3 things. Allah forbid you from the illicit action. Allah forbid you from the sins. And Allah forbids you from the transgressions. And Allah admonishes you so that you can take remembrance and you can take lesson out of it, inshallah. Very important. Everything that comes into the Quran is equally important. But here Allah Almighty specifically is using ya'muru. Allah is commanding us something. Allah is enjoining us something. Allah is directing us something, which means that the tabligh in itself is something that Allah is commanding us to do so. And a very important point, when you go through the tafsir of the ayah, very beautiful tafsir that has come to us from the infallibles, Ma'asum would say that the one of the apparent meaning of adala is to do equity and justice. The batini meaning of adala is what? La ilaha illallah, that there is no God but Allah Almighty. And ihsan, the apparent meaning of ihsan is to do righteousness righteousness, is to do good activities with the people. But the batini meaning of al-ihsan is what? Wilayatu Sayyidina wa Maulana Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So 2 ayah inshallah we keep in our mind and we move on further. How important is tabligh? I want to give inshallah a brief introduction. Now, alhamdulillah, we as believers, we as Shias of Al-Muhammad, we as Muslims, we know about the importance of tabligh. But giving tabligh to the people that are the most wretched in the history is wajib. Wajib. And that's why you have the example of Pharaoh. One of the most wretched people in the whole history of the mankind. The most wicked people in the history of the mankind. And that's why when the example of Asiya salamullahi alayha was presented, ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِمْرَأَةَ فِرْعَوْنَ. That Allah demonstrates a sample and an example in front of the believers. إِذْ قَالَتْ, when she claimed, when she invoked Allah Almighty, when she beseeched Allah Almighty, رَبِّ ابْنِ لِي عِنْدَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ وَنَجِّنِي مِنْ فِرْعَوْنَ وَعَمَلِهِ وَنَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ. Then when she invoked Allah Almighty, when she beseeched Allah Almighty, oh Allah, give me a house in the gardens of the paradise that has the closest proximity towards you. And then it goes further. Oh Allah, protect me and shield me from Pharaoh and from his commanders and from his associates. And protect me from whom? Protect me from every evildoers, the people that are persecuting other human beings. So very important. Now something which is used as an example. And the dua that was mentioned, the supplication that is mentioned, it talks in which Allah Almighty is giving an example of Asiya when she's asking Allah Almighty to protect her from whom? From Pharaoh and his associates, right? So you can understand how negative this personality is. In spite of it being a very negative personality, I would like to quote 2 passages in the Quran. How Allah has instructed Prophet Musa and how Allah has instructed Prophet Harun that when they would go and have conversation with Fir'aun, what should be the tone and what should be the methodology that they should deploy. اذهب أنت وأخوك بآياتي ولا تنيا في ذكري. That, O Musa and Harun, you both go with the signs of Allah Almighty and do not be oblivious of the remembrance of Allah Almighty. اذهبا إلى فرعون إنه طغى. You both, Musa and Harun, go towards Pharaoh, for indeed he has crossed all the limits, for indeed he has crossed all the boundaries, for indeed he has committed transgression, right? I want everyone here to concentrate. Indeed he has crossed all the boundaries that were set by Allah Almighty. He has committed transgression, all of the sins that he has done. But when you go and when you talk to him, فَقُولُوا قَوْلًا لَيَّنًا لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُوا أَوْ يَخْشَى. But when you go and have conversation with Pharaoh, make sure that you have conversation with gentleness. Make sure when you're having conversation, do it in a tender way. Do it in a way which is very gentle, so that perhaps he is able to admonish himself. Perhaps he is able to take the remembrance. Perhaps he is able to have God-fearness and God-consciousness within him. So you see, what is the methodology which is used? Qawlan layyin. Layyin means what? To talk someone very softly. To talk someone very gently. So even the most wretched person of the history, we as the believers are being instructed that when you go and dispatch the message of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, make sure, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Make sure you have that tenderness within your heart. Make sure you have leniency within your heart. Make sure you have the compassion within your heart. Make sure that you have the softness within your tone when you're having conversation, right? One passage that I quote, the second passage. هل أتاك حديث موسى إذ نادى ربه بالواد المقدس طوى. Did the story of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam came to you, dearest Muhammad? Who was Musa when he was having conversation with Allah Almighty in the blessed place of Tuwa? اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. When he was having this conversation, Allah instructed Musa to go towards Pharaoh. Indeed, he has crossed all the boundaries. Now when he went there, فَقُلْ, when you go there, when you're having the conversation, say what? هَلْ لَكَ إِلَىٰ أَن تَزَكَّى. O Pharaoh, should I communicate to you the message of Lord? Should I communicate the message of Allah Almighty so that you can clean yourself, so that you can purify yourself, so that you can enhance yourself, so you can sanctify yourself? See the way Allah is commanding Musa when he goes and talks to Pharaoh. La'natullah alayh, Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. وَأَهْدِيَكَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَتَخْشَى, so that you can be guided towards the ways of your Lord, so that you can have the God-fearness. فَأَرَاهَا الْآيَةَ الْكُبْرَى. Musa alayhi salatu wassalam showed tremendous and the great gigantic signs of Allah Almighty. All of the signs of Allah Almighty was presented in front of Pharaoh. فَكَذَّبَ وَعَصَى ثُمَّ أَدْبَرَ وَيَسْعَى فَحَشَرَ فَنَادَى فَقَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. What did Pharaoh did? Instead of accepting the message of the truth, instead of accepting the message of the righteousness, he falsified whatever Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was saying. And after falsifying the message, he had his covert strategy. And after having his personal and a very private strategy, he brought forward his strategy when he gathered his own people and he proclaimed that I am your high Lord, I am your big Lord, I am Rabbukumul A'la. فَأَخَذَهُ اللَّهُ نَكَالَ الْآخِرَةِ وَالْأُولَى. Allah give him a retribution, Allah give him a punishment, both in this dunya and the hereafter. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَعِبْرَةً لِمَنْ يَخْشَى. Within the signs and within whatever happened with Pharaoh, whatever story happened between Musa and Pharaoh, there are signs for the believers, for all those people that have God-fearness and have God consciousness within them. So very important, my dear brothers and sisters. We need to have this muqaddamah within our mind. So I started my conversation. Let's have a quick recap. The first conversation involves the importance of doing the tabligh. The second conversation involves that everybody in this earth deserves to hear the message of the truth. Whether he's the most wretched person, whether he is most wicked person of the society. So now you understand when Ali ibn Abi Talib would go and meet certain people. Indeed, they were the people that persecuted Al-Muhammad alayhi salam. But Ali ibn Abi Talib would keep reminding them about the message of the truth. Would keep reminding them about the message of the truth. It was not for the reason that Ali used to love them. It is for the reason that Ali wanted to do the itmam al-hujjah upon them. You get my point? So inshallah, this thing we keep in our mind. Now we come to the hadith that is quoted by Shaykh Kulayni in his book Al-Kafi. Right? And this is the hadith that I want to talk about. Now, there are different ways of doing tabligh. There are different ways of disseminating the message of Al-Muhammad. The way I am doing, I'm using my tongue. Right? Sometimes you would use your pen. Sometimes you would use writing. Sometimes you would make videos. There are different ways of communicating the message of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. But the most important, the most fundamental, and the most significant of all of them is what? Is when you are preaching through your actions. Now, I want all of you to concentrate here. This beautiful hadith. There were companions of Imam. Inna Sadeq awsa ba'za ashabihi. There were companions. And my mind goes, there were companions like Abu Basir. There were companions like Zurara. There were companions like Muhammad ibn Muslim. All of these companions, this Anjuman was there in front of Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wassalam. And Imam said at that moment, كُونُوا دُعَاةً لَنَا صَامِتِينَ بِغَيْرِ أَلْسُنَةٍ. That be caller towards our message. Be the one that would guide other people towards our message. Without saying anything. Silently, quietly, without uttering a word. You should be the ambassadors toward the madhab of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. So everyone had a question, the way I have a question right now, the way everybody of you that are sitting here has a question in their mind. They ask, Yabna Rasulullah, Kayfa dhalika? O the son of the Prophet, how are we able to do the tabligh of your message without saying anything? Mullah give them the formula that you all have come across. تَعْمَلُونَ بِمَا أَمَرْنَاكُمْ وَتَنْهَوْنَ بِمَا نَهَيْنَاكُمْ وَمَعَصِيهِ. Then make sure that whatever we have enjoined you, whatever we have directed you, whatever we have instructed you, you act upon it. And whatever we have asked you to refrain yourself against, you refrain yourself against those things. You refrain yourself from doing the transgression of Allah Almighty. You refrain yourself from doing the sins towards Allah Almighty. فَإِذَا رَأَى النَّاسِ مَا كُنْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ, when people would see the way that you're acting upon the madhab of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, عَلِمُوا بِمَا فَضْلَ بِمَا أَيْدِينَ, they would understand the merit and the excellence and the virtue that the madhab of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad would have. وَسَارِعُوا إِلَيْنَا, and they would run and they would rush towards us in a way that they would accept the message of the truthfulness, they would accept the message of the righteousness. And that moment Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wasalam will recall the wordings of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam, and he says, وَأَشْهَدُ أَنِّي سَمِّعْتُ أَبِي يَقُولُ, and verily I make all of you as my witness that I have heard my Baba Imam Muhammad al-Baqir saying something. He said, إِنَّ شِيعَتَنَا مِمَّا مَضَى خَيْرٌ مِمَّا كَانَ, that the Shias of Al Muhammad that have passed away, they were way better and they were greater in superiority, they were greater in excellence compared to those Shias that are right now. How is it possible? Muhammad al-Baqir explained this us, elucidate to us. How is it possible? Imam told us the way it was. وَإِن كَانَ إِمَامُ الْمَسْجِدِ فِي الْقَبِيلَةِ لَكَانَ مِنْهُمْ. If there would be an imam that would lead the people in the prayers in the masjid, in whatever locality they were living in, whatever masjid that they used to pray, if somebody would used to recite the namaz, if somebody would used to lead the namaz and salah, it was none other than the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib. وَإِن كَانَ مُؤَذِّنٌ فِي الْحَيِّ لَكَانَ مِنْهُمْ. If there would be a mu'adhin, if there would be a person who would call people towards the salat, he would call towards people towards the remembrance of Allah Almighty, it would be no one but it would be from the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib. وَإِن كَانَ مَوْضِعِ الْأَمَانَةِ وَوَضِيعَةٍ لَكَانَ مِنْهُمْ. If there would be someone that people would entrust regarding whatever belongings they would have, whatever valuable things that they would have, people would give their amanat to us, it would be none other than the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib. It goes further, وَإِن كَانَ إِمَامٌ يَلْتَفِتُ إِلَيْهِ النَّاسِ فِي أُمُورِ دُنْيَاهُمْ وَآخِرَتِهِمْ لَكَانَ مِنْهُمْ. If there would be someone that people would turn in order to get the guidance regarding this dunya, regarding this religion, regarding the day of the judgment, it would be none other than the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib. حَبِّبُونَ إِلَى النَّاسِ وَلَا تُبْغِضُونَ إِلَيْهِمْ. Make sure that you, by your action, you make us love towards the people. Don't make us despite through your action in front of the people. Very important, my dear brothers and sisters. The important message that we all want to understand is that whatever action you do, unfortunately or fortunately, it resembles your madhab. Of course, we say, don't judge the madhab, don't judge the religion by the followers. That's what we want people to understand. And this is true. Because if you would want to judge Islam by Daesh, if you would want to judge Islam by Al-Qaeda, by Taliban, by Boko Haram, all of these animals, right? So if somebody is not accepting Islam, I wouldn't blame them, of course. Because if this is what Islam is, then وَعَلَى الْإِسْلَامِ salam, right? And upon this Islam, our salam akhir to that, right? We would not want to accept that Islam, right? But you like it or you dislike it. Unfortunately, whatever followers would do, people would judge the leader through their followers. That's just a reality of the world, unfortunately. You want to give a positive image of Islam. You want to give positive image of Tashayyu. You want to give positive image of the madhab of Al-Muhammad. What is the best way of doing it? You act upon the instructions of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And you refrain from yourself from all those things that they have asked you to refrain from. You stop yourself. You desist yourself from all those inequity, illegitimate actions that your masters have commanded you to refrain from. And you know, like, maybe I might have a very good lineage that goes all the way to certain imam or certain imams. But does that guarantee that I would be most endearing person in the sight of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad? No. We have a riwayah in Al-Kafi. The Rawi says, the narrator says, Kunna inda Abi Abdullah, that we were sitting with Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. فَأَثْنَى عَلَيْهِ بَعْضُ الْقَوْمِ. There were certain group of people, there were certain Shia that were sitting there too. And they started praising Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wassalam. وَكَانَ مِنْ آخِرِ قَوْلِهِمْ. And within the last sentence, what they said was what? أَخْزَ اللَّهُ عَدُوَّكَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ. May Allah disgrace, may Allah humiliate, may Allah destroy your enemies, your adversaries, from the human beings and from the jinn. Mawla said one thing. Mawla says, Kunna wa a'da'una kathir. There used to be a time that we were very secluded, we were very isolated, and we had a lot of our enemies that were very explicit. We had a lot of our enemies that were very obvious. Wal'an, as of today, ma kana ahadun a'dalana min dhawi qarabatina wa man yantahilu ila hubbina. But as of now, when you see, there is no one who is bigger enemy of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, but whom? But the people that are near when it comes to our blood. But the people that are near when it comes to their proclamation of love towards Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Because remember, there were different sects during the time of Imam Sadeq. There were different ideologies during the time of Imam Sadeq. There was one ideology of Kaysaniya. Who were Kaysaniya? They used to believe as Muhammad bin Hanfiya as their Imam after Hasnain, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. There were within different sects within them. Within them you have Zaydiyya. Zaydiyya are today, still you can find them where? In Yemen. Right? You had Zaydiyya. And there were so many subdivisions within the Tashayyu. If you want to go and research about the history of it, go to the book of Ash'ari. He has written a whole book that talks about different sects within the Tashayyu. So not everybody who was claiming the love of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, their love was taken seriously by the Imams of Al-Muhammad. But Imam explicitly denied whatever love that they used to shower upon Al-Muhammad alayhi salam. And Mawla said that they have reached to a point, إِنَّهُمْ لَيَكْذِبُونَ عَلَيْنَا فِي الْجَفْرِ. That these are the people that have falsified us, that have lied upon us regarding the message of Ilm al-Jafr, right? People ask Mawla, what is this book? What do you refer by this important terminology? Mawla says, Misku dhannin wa misku ma'izin. That includes the hide and the skin of a sheep and a goat. Now, you don't have to go into the details. That's not what I wanted to speak. But since it's a completion of the riwayah, so I have to mention the last part too. The Jafr refers to what? Jafr al-Abiyad wa Jafr al-Ahmar. It's a whole discussion, inshallah, if we can have it one day. Mawla said that we have what within it? We have a container, and within that container we have what? Salahu Rasulillahi wa Mushafu Fatima wal Kutub. That we have all the blessed books, Torah, Injil, and everything that was given originally to different messengers and different prophets. If anybody today has it, are none other than Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If somebody has the Mushaf of Fatima, what is Mushaf of Fatima? Inshallah, it's a long discussion. Whatever discussion Jibreel and Fatima Zahra used to have, Ali ibn Abi Talib used to record that discussion, right? And that discussion, whatever he would record, that become what? As Mushaf of Fatima. And we had the weapon of the Prophet. Now the weapon of the Prophet has its own significance, has its own importance. And inshallah we can talk about the importance of having the tabarrukat or the turukat of different Al-Muhammad alayhi salam that actually proves the imamah of who is the righteous imam and who is the false imam. Very important. Your lineage is not going to protect you, my dear brothers and sisters. Your lineage is not going to protect you if you don't have the wilaya of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That's why Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wasalam used to retread these words. Wilayatul Ali ibn Abi Talib. Afdalu min wiladati minhu. You want to understand? Me believing in the wilayah of my master, the commander of the faithful, is more beloved to me than me being from the progeny and from the offspring of Ali ibn Abi Talib. لأن ولايتي فرض وولادتي منهم فضل. You want to understand the difference? Having the wilayah of Al-Muhammad is something which is imperative. And after you have believed in the wilayah of Al-Muhammad, if somebody is from the progeny of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, this is something which is a merit and excellence in itself. But when is it excellence and when is it merit? It is merit once you have the wilayah, the true understanding and the true marifah and the true actions based upon the teachings of the Blessed Family. And in the other riwayah he says, Wilayati li-abai ahabbu ilayya min nasabi minhum. Again, same message. Believing in the wilayah of my forefathers, the commander of the faithful, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Imam Zayn al-Abdin, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, same Imam Sadeq. This is Sha'dan bin Jibreel quoting in his book, Ar-Rawdatu min Fada'ili Amir al-Mu'mineen. Both riwayats mentioned in the same page. That believing in the wilayah of my forefathers is more beloved to me than them being my forefathers. Why is that so, Mawla? لأن ولايتي تنفعني من غير نسب والنسب لا ينفعني بغير ولاية. Difference. The wilayah is going to protect me even though if I wouldn't have the best of the lineage. But my lineage is not going to protect me if I don't have the wilayah of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Very important. Very fundamental. And here we're talking about the callers towards the religion, the callers towards the madhab of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. So I would like to reiterate two important callers. And there is a riwayah that Safar has quoted in his book, Basair. Abu Sa'id is one of the companion of the Prophet. He says, سمعت رسول الله ورأيته, that I heard Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying something, and I also saw him reiterating these points, mentioning this point. He said, Ya Ali, ما بعث الله نبيا إلا قد دعا إلى ولايتك طائعا أو كارها. That, oh Ali, nobody in the creation that Allah has sent as messengers, nobody was sent as messengers, but they were instructed by Allah Almighty to call towards your wilayah all the people that were there. Some people accepted your wilayah boundly, and some people did not accept your wilayah boundly. There were some people that did not accept the wilayah, and there were some people that, perhaps they accepted the wilayah, but not out of their love, but something that was compelled upon them. So that's one caller that we are referring towards. And that's why when even in Quran, very explicit ayats of the Quran that talks about calling people towards the righteous message, towards the message of the truth, but by hikmah. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah. That when you're calling people, call people by wisdom and by good wordings. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنَ at the end. It says, when you're discussing with the people, when you're having dialogue with the people, do it in a way which is the best and the most dignified of the ways. وَلَا تُجَادِلُوا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنَ. And when you are having discussion with the people of the book, who are the people of the book? The Jews, the Christians, and one sect for them, the Majusis, right? As per one of the riwayats we have from Al-Muhammad. But two of them are unanimous, the Jews and the Christians, right? When you are having discussion with them, and majority of them here are Christians, or people that claim that for themselves Christianity. Maybe they might not be the best of the followers, but still, they are the one that will celebrate Christmas, that will celebrate Easter, right? So when you are discussing, you have a whole world. Me, myself, I would probably go into debates with maybe like with Ahlul Sunnah, with different other school of Islam. But very important market that you have are the markets of non-Muslims. You have so many people that do not even believe in the presence and the existence of God, atheists. Some of them are agnostics. And then you have kuffar, you have disbelievers. You have the people that do not believe in the message of the truth. Some of them are the people that are non-kitabi, right? And within them you have a good chunk, good majority that are the people of the book. When you are being instructed, when you go and have conversation with them, talk to them in a way which is the polite way, which is the best way, which is the most dignified way, the most ahsan way, ahsan, the best of the ways. And why is it important? Why is it important to call towards the religion of Islam? Is we reflect upon one passage from Zarat of Al-Yasin, right? Or Al-Yasin, or Zati Al-Yasin. Very important point. Salamun ala Al-Yasin. Salam and salutations be upon whom? Upon the progeny of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And then you refer to the Imam and you refer him with different name. Assalamu alayka ya da'i Allah wa rabbani ayati. My salam and salutations be upon the one who calls towards Allah Almighty, and he is the reciter of the ayats of Allah Almighty. Assalamu alayka ya bab Allahi wa dayyana dini. My salam upon the one, my salutations be upon the one who is the door towards Allah Almighty, and he is going to be the judge on the day of the judgment, right? Assalamu alayka, you move further. Assalamu alayka ya Khalifatallahi wa Nasira Haqqi. My salam upon the ambassador of Allah Almighty. My salam be upon the Caliph of Allah Almighty. My salam be upon the one who assists and aid the madhab, the deen of Allah Almighty. Assalamu alayka ya Hujjatallah wa Dalila Iradati. My salam be upon the one who is the proof of Allah Almighty, and he is the manifestation of the will of Allah Almighty. Assalamu alayka ya taliya kitab Allahi wa tarjumana ayati. Salam be upon the one who recites the ayah of Allah Almighty, and he is the interpreter of Allah, the ayats of Allah Almighty too. He is the one that explains the ayats of Allah Almighty too. Assalamu alayka fi ana'i laylika wa atrafi naharika. Assalamu alayka ya baqiyat Allahi fi ardi. Salam and salutations be upon you during the time of the day. Salam and salutations be upon you, O my Imam, during the time of the night. Salam and salutations be upon you, O the baqiyatullah, the remnant of Allah Almighty. Assalamu alayka ya mithaq Allah alladhi dhamina akhadahu wa dhamina. Salam be upon the mithaq of Allah Almighty, the covenant of Allah Almighty that Allah has taken and Allah has solidified. Assalamu alayka ya wa'ad Allah alladhi dhamina. Salam be upon the wa'ada of Allah Almighty, the promise of Allah Almighty that Allah has taken personal guarantee about. Assalamu alayka. You move further. Assalamu alayka ayyuhal alam al mansub wal ilm al masbub wal ghawth wal rahmatul wasi'ah wa wa'dun ghayr al maghdhum. Salam be upon you, O Mawla. Salam be upon you, the Imam of the time. O the Imam of the time, you are the banner of Allah Almighty that is still standing. You are the container of the knowledge of Allah Almighty that is filled. You are the rahmat, the manifestation of the mercy of Allah Almighty. If people have to ask Allah Almighty for any hajat, to do it through your wasila, O Mawla. You are the wa'ada, you are the promise of Allah Almighty that can never be falsified. So what do you say, Mawla? Who is Mawla? The first introduction that he do. Assalamu alayka da'i Allah. First thing, first mentioning, the first merit, the first laqab, the first thing that you mention about is that you're caller towards the deen of Allah Almighty. And indeed, we're following the sunnah of Al-Muhammad. We're following the sunnah of Qa'im of Al-Muhammad. Very important that if he is being referred, the first thing, that he is calling people towards the deen, of course, we have a responsibility on our shoulders too. That we should be the ambassadors. And see, that's not an ikhlaqi point that I have mentioned. That's not a point that, okay, was a good majlis, but who cares? No. This who cares is not there. You have to do the tabligh, my dear brothers. And inshallah, we're going to mention more examples from tomorrow onwards. Some of the examples, the formula that Imam Sadeq has given, that you have to do the tabligh through your actions. First, you do tabligh through your actions. I might be a very good speaker, but if my actions are completely against what I'm preaching on the minbar, believe me, people are not going to take my words. People are only going to take you seriously if you act what you preach. If your action is in conflict, whatever you are saying, people are not going to take you seriously, right? First thing and foremost thing and imperative thing is what? When we're calling people towards Islam, we do it silently first, and then when there is a need for speech, and when there is a need for conversation, when there is a need of dialogue, inshallah, we can have that in a very civil and a very dignified way too. We move on further, inshallah. We are commemorating the Martyrdom anniversary of Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wasalam. Who's Imam? Reflect upon the tragedy. Someone who used to remember Karbala profusely. Somebody who used to remember Karbala in abundance. Have the riwayah that says, very important riwayah. رأيت أبا عبد الله استسقى الماء. The narrator is saying what? That I saw Imam Sadeq alayhi salatu wassalam, and he was asking for the water. The water was presented to him. فَلَمَّا شَرَبَ. As soon as he drank the water, استعبر وإغرورقت عيناه بالدموع. As soon as he drank the water, he started crying. And the crying was not very normal. He cried so much that the tears, they started falling from his eyes. And at that moment he says, قاتل الله لعن الله قاتل الحسين. May Allah withdraw mercy from whom? From the people that have assassinated my Baba Abu Abdullah. One riwayah you have. Second riwayah that says, لِكُلِّ سِرٌ ثَوَابٌ. For everything, Allah has guaranteed certain thawab. Allah has given certain thawab, certain reward, recompensation for any good action that is done. إِلَّا دَمْعَةً فِينَا. But there is one thing that cannot be counted, the thawab, the reward of it cannot be counted. And that is the tears that you would roll out from your eyes, because when the musibah and the catastrophe and the mishap is being mentioned regarding the family of Prophet Muhammad and his al. You move on to further, he has having a conversation with one of the narrator, Ibn Qaliway, mentioned in his book Kamil Ziyara. He says, أما إنك من الذين يعدون من أهل الجزع لنا. May Allah make you one of those that show their lamentation and sorrow upon us. يفرحون لفرحنا ويحزنون لحزننا. A Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib, a Shia of Al-Muhammad is one. He is gleeful when Al-Muhammad alayhi salam are satisfied. When Al-Muhammad alayhi salam are in sorrow, he feels very sorrowful too. Mullah, you said that whenever you would drink water, remember the thirst of Abu Abdullah. Remember the tragedy of Abu Abdullah. The riwayah says whenever the tragedy of Abu Abdullah would be mentioned, you would not see Imam smiling throughout the day. Imam used to say, Inna al-Husayn abaratu li kulli mu'min. Whenever the tragedy of Abu Abdullah is mentioned, that will bring tears, that will bring crying for the believers in general. Mullah, you used to cry when the tragedy of Hussein would be mentioned, but my mind goes all the way to Imam Zainul Abidin. The riwayah says that whenever the food was presented in front of Imam, whenever the water was presented in front of the Imam, and when it was the time of iftar, you could understand how hot it is in Medina, how difficult it is to go throughout the day while you are fasting. But whenever the food and the water would be presented, he would not drink the water, he would not eat the food, he would cry and he would cry and he would sob and weep so profusely that the tears would come out of his eyes and it would go into the water and the food. And when the people would ask, Mawla, you are crying so much, what has happened? The years have passed but you are still crying. He would reply that you have not done justice. When Yaqub and Yusuf were separated for a few years, Yaqub cried so much that his eyes became wide. What I have seen 18 of my family members slaughtered in front of my eyes. The incident say one time Mawla was walking into the streets of Medina. As he was walking into the streets of Medina, he found a stranger, he found a gharib person who was walking. Mawla asked him that unfamiliar person who was begging people. Mawla said that if something is supposed to happen, if that befell upon us, what would happen? He said, Mawla, even though I am gharib, even though I am a stranger, even though I am isolated, but I know my janazah, I know my funeral, I know my burial would be taken care of by all the Muslims living in the city. When Mawla heard these words, he turned his attentions towards Karbala and he said these famous lines: Wa asafa alayka ya Aba Abdullah, atabqa thalathata ayyamin bila dafnin. Oh, the tragedy of my Baba, my Baba. His body was left exposed, his body was unattended for 3 days. And one of the riwayahs says he was walking into the streets of Medina. As he passed into the market, he saw a butcher, and when he saw the butcher, he saw that you give the water to the animal before you slaughtered. He said, Mawla, it is the rule of Islam, it is the rule of the faith that whenever you are to slaughter an animal, you give that animal the water. Mawla turned his attention again towards Karbala. Wa asafa alayka ya abata. Oh, the tragedy that befall upon my father. Atudhbahu wa tushana. Oh, my Baba, when you were slaughtered, you were extremely thirsty. How thirsty was Hussein? The Makta says, Yaluka lisanahu. Hussein would sometimes take his tongue out, and sometimes he would take inside. It resembled like a piece of a wood. It resembled like a piece of a dry wood. Hussein was so thirsty that when the qabr of Hussein was made, Sayyid al-Sajidi wrote only one thing onto the stone: هذا قبر الحسين الذي قتلوه عطشانا. This is the grave of my Baba, who was killed in a state that he was extremely thirsty. One last riwayah, my brothers and sisters. The riwayah says Abu Harun came to Imam Sadeq. He came with a marthiyah, he came with few words of poem, and he started reciting these words: Umrul ala jadath al-Husayn, Umrul ala jadath al-Husayn, فكل عظمه الزكية. Go to the blessed body of Abu Abdullah and give the message to the body bones of Hussein ibn Ali. The riwayah says when Imam Sadeq heard these words, he cried so much, he cried so much. Abu Harun stopped himself. He did not continue further. And my mind goes, and he said that go to the body, but instead giving the message to the body, give the message to the bones of Abu Abdullah. Why was the mentioning of the bones of Abu Abdullah? Probably the mind of Imam Sadeq would have gone. The way the lash of Hussein was palmed, the way the lash of the body of the Hussein was being trampled, the body of the Hussein was trampled in a way that the bones and the ribs of Hussein, they became part of the place of the God. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Khudaya, oh Allah Almighty, we ask you, by the wasila of these tears that are rolling down from the eyes of the azadars, from the people, from the believers that are sitting here, that Ya Allah, you accept this ibadah from us, inshallah. Ya Allah, marhameen, especially the marhameen of Brother Akbar and the wife of Masood uncle that just recently passed away. We ask Allah Almighty to shower His blessing upon those marhameen and the marhameen of all the mu'mineen that are sitting here. And Ya Allah, give them the proximity of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhi wassalam. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi al-tahireen.